Hello and welcome back to a Squirrel Plays. We're back at it with our regularly scheduled video because I totally have a schedule I stick to, and that video is the start of the Magic Items series. And just like the world building series we started a little while back, this will involve not only other people's input, but their creations as well. Also, I did realize once I sat down to work on this that I probably should have told everybody in the Discord to share their homemade magic items and custom abilities and spells they made for their players. I guess in my mind they were kind of the same thing, but I can see how others might not see it that way. Regardless, I will be starting this one off by sharing some, not all, some of the stuff I made in the very first campaign that I ran. I thought I had made more, but looking back through all my notes, it turns out I gave most of the players special abilities instead of special items. But hey, I still have a few things to share to get this started. But I would also like to clarify that yes, one or more of these items may sound crazy, and you could very easily think of ways to break them. They were made for those players in that game. They weren't meant to be a plug and play into any adventure you currently have going. I'm sharing them for inspiration and for others to chip in and share too. That means you don't even have to use them in 5th edition of D&D. Take them and do whatever you want with them. Now, first up is the DBC, also known as Dragon Breath in a Can. And that is very much what it is. It followed all the same rules as the breath weapon that Dragonborn gets, except instead of a cone area of effect, it just hits a 2x2 area. The player would specify which breath type they wanted, twist the appropriate dials on the device, then hurl it across the way. The device held all the breath weapon types, but only had enough propellant to be used twice a day. The device would refill itself within 24 hours because convenience and balance. I also told them that at the appropriate level, they could take it back to the person that made it for them and have it upgraded, following the same progression as breath weapon. Though looking back, I don't think they ever did that. The player that held onto this and used it was the monk, as she had very limited ranged options. And you know what's better than a monk throwing a grenade? A bugbear monk throwing a grenade. One of these days I'll get that stupidly long video done breaking down the entirety of my first campaign. But yeah, anyway, that's about it for that one. It's nothing too special. Who was giving it to them in the story was the more important part, but who cares about all that? Next on the list is Nylors Tear, which, by the way, no matter how many times I look at that word, it does not look right. It should be T-E-E-R, but no, because English is stupid. Anyway, Nylors Tear was a warp device, again created for player convenience. The device was in two parts, one being a pocket watch that controlled a crystal, and the crystal was the actual Nylors Tear. Together, they allowed the players to warp back to the hideout for a group they were working with. The player would dial the watch in a specific pattern, and doing so would activate the crystal inside and slide it out. The players would then take the said crystal and set it on the ground somewhere. After that, the players could use the watch to determine when they wanted the warp portal to activate. They could set it to open a single second from activation, or hours, or even days at a time, meaning they could bury the crystal in the ground and set it to open a portal a day later or something else. That may or may not have happened by the people that introduced the item to them. Once the portal was open, the players could retrieve the crystal and step through. Whenever the crystal was taken through the warp, it would close. The warp only connected to a single place, which was the hideout mentioned earlier. However, people could come and go between the two places so long as the portal was open. Now, why was it called Nylors Tear? Well, if you recognize that name, I apologize. Nihiloor was a character in the campaign I ran, and yes, he was a mind flayer, but that's about all he had in common with the original Nihiloor of the 5e world. Nihiloor was different from the other mind flayers in the sense that he didn't want to dominate the world and rule those around him, but instead wanted to fix the world, and not in the evil kind of way. Well, not at first, anyway. He ran with a group of soldiers that fought evil things, and while leading a group of soldiers of his own under his own command, they got trapped. Nihiloor was separated and was forced to listen to the cries of his men as they were slaughtered. They said Nihiloor never rested between that day and the creation of his new warp device. Anyway, with that tidbit out of the way, now we get to talk about another device that goes with it, the Triplicata. And yes, that's a Rubik's Cube. And no, that's not because Ollie was just talking about them the other day. The Triplicata was a device made by Nylors' friend/partner and was meant to work in tandem with the warp created by Nylors Tear. If you remember, activating the warp would open a portal to these guys' hideout. And in the hideout waiting was some mechanical friendos with really big guns. Unless told otherwise, they would absolutely blast anything that came through the portal. The Triplicata was a device to be thrown through the portal before stepping into it. The idea was that the cube could be arranged in several different patterns to send a message through. When given this item, each player in the group had to make an intelligence check to see how much they could learn. If you rolled a nat 1, you didn't learn anything and the item was completely useless to you. Rolling 2 to 13, you could make the phrase, "I'm returning, please stand down." 14 and 15, you'd learn the previous phrase, as well as "I'm returning first and have enemies behind me." 16 to 19, you'd learn the previous phrases, and "I'm being held captive" and used to open the portal. 20 and above, all previous phrases, plus one of your choice. If you got a nat 20, you mastered the device's language and could use it to say anything you needed at any time. Now, with all that said, I don't think they ever took advantage of the portal and let bad guys just walk in and get blasted. They did, however, open the portal underwater and flood the hideout. They also used it to move furniture, and this is why we don't give our players nice things. And for the magical item that will absolutely break your game, one of the players got the Twin Moon Shield. And if I can get this right, she was a Wild Hunt Shifter Cleric. Yeah, and her deity was Saloon. In the campaign, she found out she had an evil twin because that's original, and she ended up having to kill her. As a reward for such a terrible task, she was gifted the Twin Moon Shield, which was supposed to be a play on her two-sided nature and being able to shift between two forms, as well as having a twin, and also Saloon and the whole moon thing. It all tied together, trust me. And what did the shield do? Oh boy, what it do. At the start of each combat, she had to declare which stance she wanted to use, and she would be stuck in that stance for the entirety of the combat. You could choose between the New Moon stance, which was defensive, or Full Moon, which was offensive. The New Moon stance gave you the following benefits: +2 to your AC, and since she was already at 18, this put her at a nice whopping 20. If you were moving to heal an ally, you would gain an additional 10 feet of movement speed for that turn. All healing spells had a chance to not consume their spell slot on use. When using the spell, you would roll a straight D20. If you rolled 17 or higher, you did not consume the spell slot. However, it also did the following. It reduced your attack damage by 5 points. It reduced your attack accuracy by 5 points. And you could not use any offensive spells whatsoever. The idea there was to make her lean way harder into the support role, something she never ended up doing. Her character was so angry by that point that she just constantly stayed in the Full Moon stance, which gave her the following. A nice tasty +3 attack damage. All your attacks under normal conditions were guaranteed hits. Offensive spells had a chance not to consume their spell slot on use, following the same rules as before. And if your 2-hit roll was 18 or higher, you could attack a second time, but this would only proc once per turn. The downsides were, you lost 3 whole points of AC, bringing her down to 15. And since she had a weapon she could use with 2 hands, she would put her shield behind her and lose another 2 AC, bringing her all the way down to 13. She couldn't use any support or healing spells, and she also couldn't land crits. And if you're thinking, wait, she can't crit, but if she rolls 18 or higher, she can attack again and hits her guaranteed hits anyway, what difference does that make? And the answer is absolutely nothing. This is what happens when you're new to the game and things like Roll20 automatically roll crit damage for you. The whole time we were playing, I was under the impression crits were completely different than they actually do. So yes, you're correct. It's still critting, it just has a lower threshold. So yes, she became a very, very, very angry but squishy cleric. It was a lot of fun. She spent a lot of the campaign being the support and keeping everybody alive. Then towards the end, when she got this item, she had had enough and just started crushing everything with her hammer out of heartbroken rage and confusion. So you see, things don't have to make sense. Make whatever's fun for you and fits the game you're currently in. Who cares what other people think? And yes, you will make mistakes. We all do. The next one of these that we'll do should have some contributions from other people, and if you'd like to share yours right here and now, you can. But before we wrap up and get out of here, I'd like to give a very special shout out to Hello, it's the Editing Squirrel here with a message. Originally, this shout out segment was meant to be incredibly sarcastic and hopefully humorous, but I decided not to do it at the very last minute, and that's why this video is now going out a little bit late. You see, a particular individual left some really wild comments on my last video, and funnily enough, thanks to his engagement, the video actually performed better than my average. But just so the rest of the video makes sense, I do need to give you some context. This person claimed that 1, D&D is the superior TTRPG and everything else you play is inferior. 2, I am a fake YouTuber who spreads lies. Oh, I can't even keep a straight face. 2, I am a fake YouTuber who spreads lies and stirs up fake drama in order to manipulate my audience for financial gain. And 3, we, as in all of us here that have been watching the videos, commenting and discussing amongst ourselves and hanging out in the Discord, we are not a community. Not by a long shot, apparently. It was pretty wild, and instead of naming him and calling him out, I'll just say this. I don't know what you're going through, man, but I hope it gets better soon for you. Alright, Editing Squirrel out. Enjoy the last bit of the video. And it is at this point I would like to speak into the void because there is no community here, and remind it that if it likes what it sees and feels the need, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link down in the description below. If that's not your cup of tea, no pun intended, you can always like the video or subscribe, leave a comment, or really anything. Even downvoting it counts as engagement. So, empty void of nothingness, until the next one, make sure you stay safe and have fun, because that's the most important part of the game. I also told them at the appropriate level, they